My name is Mike Osmun. I served in the U.S. Navy. I served active duty from 1972 to 1975 and reserve from 1975 to 1978.
What was it that made you want to join the Navy?
I was always interested in the Navy. In the beginning, I looked at the Seabees about becoming a heavy equipment operator, but that was my goal when I went in. My folks weren't willing to help pay for college, so that was the best opportunity for me.
During your time with the Navy, where were you stationed?
I was stationed in San Diego, California.
Do you think that's better than being stationed overseas?
I do. I mean, I ended up on aboard a ship. I was not able to get into the Seabees. It was a closed rate, so I became a communications electrician. And we did one tour overseas.
So, as an electrician, what was your training like? Do you think it was like harder or easier than a foot soldier, or like just a regular soldier?
Well, it's a different kind of training. The training that we did took your knowledge, bases, brute force. One thing I knew for sure, that if I didn't complete my training as an electrician, I'd end up in the fire room and work as a boiler tech. So I didn't want to do that. That was a hot place to work.
Did you meet anybody during your time with the Navy that really impacted you?
Yeah, I met several people aboard ship that impacted me. One person in particular, we became friends, and after I got out of the service, I hadn't heard or seen anything out of the guy for 30-some years. I looked him up and found out that he served became a senior chief in the Navy, and he served 24 years and still lived in California. Today we get together and talk about old times.
Do you have any stories or events that happened to you with your time in the service that really impacted you personally?
Well, there are a lot of things that happened. I was 3 years aboard ship. We were in and out of port all the time, but when we took our Westpac tour, which is Western Pacific, wasn't in Vietnam. I saw Vietnam. We ended up in Thailand. We hit a lot of other places. We were in the Philippines a lot, Hong Kong, Taiwan, places like that. One other thing that impacted me is something I'll never forget, is we were the first Navy ship to ever fire a Harpoon missile out to sea. So we were the very first to do that.
What prompted that missile to be fired?
It was just the training. It had never been fired aboard a Navy ship. They were still in the testing program. And the first one that actually fired was a dud. It went over the bow of the ship without hitting us. And then the second one they fired was a successful fire.
Did your time as an electrician with the Navy, did that impact your career later in life?
Not necessarily. When I got out of the service, there was a big push to hire the vets, but there were no jobs to be had. I ended up in law enforcement, and that's where I stayed for 37 years.
Do you think your time in the service helped with law enforcement?
I think it did, as far as structure and discipline was concerned. I think it helped quite a bit.
Was there any particular ways that your life was changed by your time in the service?
I don't know if I could say one thing in particular. If nothing else, as a kid, for the most part, coming out of high school, you grew up fast. You learned to fend for yourself. Your mom and your dad weren't there to help you out.
If you don't mind me asking, were there any stressful or emotional events that happened to you during your time with the Navy?
Yeah, there was a few. One in particular was a fire that we had aboard ship. We had a lot of drills, and we got called to general quarters quite a bit, but most of that was training. And when they started off, before they rang general quarters, they would say this was a drill. One night about 2 o'clock in the morning, it went off, and they said this is not a drill. And that was a pretty scary moment. We had an actual fire in the boiler room where it wasn't supposed to be, and you are the firefighters. You saved the ship. Nobody comes to help you do that. You do that. So everybody went to their battle stations, and we were able to save the ship, keep it from burning up, and we continued our journey.
When you finished your time in the service, how did you feel when you came home?
Actually, I was glad to be home, but after I was home a couple of weeks, I wasn't working, looking for work. Got pretty boring, got pretty lonely, until I started working full time. So that was a good 8 months before I actually found a full-time employment.
If there were any people my age looking to join the military, what would you say to them?
I would say it's probably one of the greatest experiences you would ever have. I mean, there's training, there's camaraderie. Even after your military service, you join organizations such as the American Legion. You talk about what you did and what your buddies did, and it's just an overall good thing as far as I'm concerned.